Hey, welcome back to the stream. Big day today. Big day today. So I am not going to dilly dally in our discussion with um, a lot of preface, but we've got a new version of tiramisu to try out. I say it's new; it hasn't been tagged yet, but there's some huge changes. And the big one that I think may be relevant to folks who come to the stream is all that busy work is not the right word. Uh, all that tedium that we went through last week, extracting the easings into a separate library. Um, I I didn't expect that much to come of it right away. I thought, oh, we'll come back next week and then we'll do the conversion in Tiramisu. Well, the author of Tiramisu, totally awesome person. Been talking with her privately on Discord as well as in the public channels, but um, she went and basically rewrote a lot of the library in preparation for the next version. So, big things are easings are no longer part of it. So, um, the animation modules significantly decreased in size, um, and um, and you can bring your own easings. So you can basically just give it a function that's a float to a float, and that can be your easing. So if you want to make your own crazy easing, you can do it. Or you can pull in the library we just extracted, import it, and add it to your animation. So that's pretty cool. The other big thing, and this actually has me really excited because there were some things that like you could see in the 3.js docs that just weren't exposed in Tiramisu. Um, and things like extra geometries, extra material types, and so forth. And I would love to make use of those more easily. So what they did is they extracted a new library, which is just the bindings of 3.js. It's like a minimal interface over 3.js. That's like fantastic. I honestly, it looked like it was also kind of a tedious transformation. I suspect and I hope that they did it with an LLM or some kind of script that does the bind gen, the code generation. Anyway, so we're going to check out that branch today. And aside from just making sure everything seems to be working on that branch, we're going to take that branch and we're going to use that branch in our game that we've been building, and see what we need to change. So this should be really interesting. Anyway, I've got the tiramisu repo up here, and I just checked this. I had looked at the pull request. We may pull that up in a little bit. But if you look at, I'm ignoring the examples folder because she changed like all the names of the examples. But we're going to look at what happened in source. So aside from the extraction of the 3.js API to something separate, we make use of this library called plinth, which is a binding to JavaScript APIs in Gleam. So you can just import plinth as a library and then use it. So these are things that are not yet in plinth. I imagine they'll eventually be contributed back. But plinth looks really good as well. So we'll be looking at that, using some of that in our game probably. Anyway, so I don't remember the git command, but you can see there's a lot of things that were like pulled out of the FFI to 3.js because that FFI is completely over in, I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Savoyardi, this new library. And then they like really thinned down the game logic that's in JavaScript. It's much smaller. So of course, keeping it mutable in JavaScript, or like that's why we're going to JavaScript in some of these places. A lot of this could be written in Gleam potentially, but doing it in JavaScript simplifies a few things. So this is the new runtime stuff. The post processing is, just pulling all the stuff from the 3.js add-ons. And we're gonna jump past that. But the big thing here is like this file is just deleted. The FFI, the original FFI to 3.js, and stuff was really simplified. So that's awesome. Let me see here. We're just going to go to the end. So there's a new module for animation called tween. So we got rid of the animation module, if I recall correctly. And the tween, you can see here, this is relevant to the changes that we made last week with the easing functions. This is very much the same as what it was before. But now easing is just a function from a float to a float. It's not, some enum that has various members that have to be, turned into a function at runtime. And then, of course, you have the alert function, which is, given these two values and a progress between them, how do you interpolate? There's examples here for how to make your own tween. And then, yeah. So the other big thing that you will see throughout this is, rather than having that float value, which represented, I don't know, nanoseconds or milliseconds, depending on the context, there was a switch to use these duration types that are from this Gleam time library, which is really good. Gleam, wrong window here. Let's look. So if we look at Gleam time, yeah, so there's calendar duration and timestamp. This duration type lets you, it's more like the Rust duration type. It's basically opaque, and you can treat it like an arithmetic object. You can add things to it. You can construct them from a certain number of seconds, time seconds, nanoseconds, etc. And then you can convert it to like this, or to fractional seconds, or to seconds and nanoseconds. So pretty awesome. And then there's things with timestamps and calendars, but we won't be needing to use those in our game. The big thing here is this duration type. So this duration type gets used all over the changes in this version of Tiramisu, and I think it's really great. It makes me think a lot less about about timing. Like, what units am I in? That's going to be really huge. Of course, the existing things for tweens have basically just been moved to this module. So, tweening floats, tweening vec3s, quaternions, transforms, etc. All that has just been copied over. So those are some things that we're gonna see. I'm going to check out the migration branch, and then we're going to, let's just make sure it'll build. Oh, that's the other thing, is we have a new version of Gleam. We need to upgrade Gleam. Okay. So let's see what we can do. Let's do brew upgrade Gleam. See if that'll just work. And then we'll go over to our game project and update everything. And it's going to download all the things. I don't think that Tiramisu has been updated to Gleam 1.14, but there's not likely that we'll need to change here. So let's see what options we got. Let's do Gleam build again. Okay, so this is Savoyardi library. The quaternions are pulled out into this quaterny library. I don't know what structures is, but so we can build it. Let's run the tests real quick. Super fast. All right. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to our game, and I think, yeah. So here what we're gonna do. I'm gonna change this, and I'm gonna say path is ... tiramisu, and pray that this works. So we're gonna get a bunch of okay, so we've updated our, let me make sure that the constraints, let's see the outdated dependencies. This is a new thing. Okay, poly. What are we using poly for? Do we depend on that directly? No, we do not. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay, I forgot the other big change in Tiramisu is that IDs for 3.js objects now have to be strings. So we're going to have to make something that converts our scene IDs into strings. And then we're either going to have to manually do that, or we'll make something that takes our enum and turns it into a stable string. So we may do that. We'll see what happens. Okay, so this is probably going to fail because there's a lot of changes that we're going to have to go through. So yeah, so there's no texture asset in the same way. Let's look at, and we can close this. We don't need this anymore, at least not right now. So if we look at the source directory here, Tiramisu, the asset module only loads these. There's a new texture module. So Savoyardi, let's look at that. Let's look at that. Did I spell it right? Savo. Let's just start with that. That's probably enough. Oh, it isn't even published, is it? Okay. Well, here. We're gonna go. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Okay, we're gonna go to Renata's repositories. And there's going to be here. Gosh, I can't even spell it. Okay, so it's not published to hex yet. That's the thing. So this is, you know, very low level 3.js bindings. So I think that let's restart our servers. Oops, wrong one. Let's restart them here. We're going to start to get these errors. Okay, so the issue will be, yeah, let's go here. I saw this change. This is just an effect, I think. So let's look at the examples. Actually, we can just look at them in our editor. So the examples, yeah, like I'm just going to delete all these things because they've removed the numbers from them, right? Okay, so I want to look at the example that has to do with, let's see the sprites demo. So the sprites demo, it's surely going to be loading some. Okay, so there's an effect from promise bit here in this asset load texture. That function no longer exists. So I wonder if that's been updated on this branch. This is a Tiramisu asset, but it's clearly how's that directory now? But asset has only these in it. There's texture load. Okay. So there's not this unified thing. And there's not a batch load result anymore. So we're going to do okay. Let's first import tiramisu texture, and then we don't have any models in this project, so I think what we want to do is I swear there was an example here where yeah, let's look at materials and lights because I know this has been updated. Okay, so they're just directly using textures, not assets, in the same way that we were before. And they've got this loaded textures thing. We may do something like this. This would be nice, like have our own type there. Right, okay, and so they are giving like concrete names for all the textures and then the URLs. And these are just a list of promises, asset.load texture, which is what we'll do. Except it's not asset, it's texture.load. So I suspect this has not been updated completely either. Okay, and then they do promise a wait list. Okay, so we'll do something like this, I think. So, yeah, let's just remove this bit and get rid of the parens. Now we're going to say this is a list.map. And we're going to say asset dot, no, not asset, texture dot load. Right, so this is going to return a promise of a result. And we're going to get rid of this asset load batch simple. And we'll use promise.awaitList. Right? Okay. So let me comment those out for now. What is this type going to be? It's going to be a promise of list of results. Okay. And then if the promise finishes, we are going to we're going to get rid of this. Yeah, let's put underscore there. We don't know what type it is. We don't care. Actually, what we want is we want this constructor, but it's going to be, we're going to give it a different type, and then it's going to give a message A. Let's have it be, okay, we don't need that anymore. Let's import dictionary. We're going to have it take a dictionary. And this is going to be a string and a result of texture.texture. And we want this to map to whatever texture.load does. Okay, so it returns nil. Okay. I maybe should have done we don't have that much here, so let's do we're gonna call it textures. We'll call it loaded textures. And we're going to say Lucy is a texture.texture, and we're going to say Lucy happy is a texture.texture, and so forth. This is very similar to what they were doing in the other example. And Starfield is a texture.texture. Okay. So what I actually want to do is say this takes a loaded textures and returns a message. So this is the message constructor. We need to handle failure here because that can return nil, right? So if we wait list, is there a like promise map error? No. Okay, so I think that here, um, and then we definitely need to do effect from promise at the end. So we just need to make sure that, right, so this is a list of results. Result has I think has a list. Yeah. Returns only the values inside OK. That's not actually what we want. We have result.all. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to change this to, we're going to say on success, on fail, and that's going to just return a message. Yeah. So we're going to do case result all of texters. And if it's okay, texters, we are going to and I think what I want to do here is, because this is a list, right? So result all will return a list of texters. So we're going to do Lucy, Lucy, happy, because these are going to be in order. That's the contract of. So if that matches, then what we're going to do is we're going to create. We're going to call on success. And we'll say loaded texters. Lucy, Lucy, and this is going to make it easy because of the field. And then honestly, if it's anything else, yeah, the problem here is that this texture load will return nil on an error. It doesn't say why. So really we don't have anything to pass. We're just going to say on fail and call it. And let's import. Yeah, we don't need glitch anymore. We'll import Gleam result. Okay, so hopefully that was clear enough. We're switching this to be texture specific. We might want I'm going to name these so they're easier. We might want to load some other things later, in which case we'll expand this and it'll be like we'll load something else. Right now I only care about textures, so we're just going to stick with that. And so now, yeah, we have some other things to fix. Let me go back up here, and I think that we're going to get so we need the message here to change. This needs to be asset dot game assets. So this is going to be assets dot loaded textures. Asset failed. Asset loading failed. So we're going to make that message for a top level game. And it's going to go here. We're going to say on success, assets loaded, on fail, assets asset loading failed. Okay. Now this asset cache thing, that has changed significantly as well. So I want to look over here. Yeah, and I think they just don't use it. It's gone. Yeah, there's nothing there. In texture, there's no cache thingy, so we just get to keep track of it ourselves. So yeah, this is just an opaque type wrapping 3.js. So one of those bits where we name a type that has no name on the FFI side, and it just keeps things neater in Gleam. So this file is pretty long. Most of it's documentation, but there's only 4,000 lines at that, so that's not so bad. But yeah, we don't have this unified idea of assets anymore. You have textures, you have model, like 3D models, you have materials that can be loaded. I think you have materials. Anyway, all right. So we're not going to need the asset cache, so let's get rid of that. We are gonna make a textures though, and we're gonna say I've got option. So we're gonna say option of assets dot loaded textures, right? And the init here is just gonna be, this will be none. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to handle this message and update. So this is going to be so much simpler. Yay. Okay, so if we get assets loaded, this is going to be, you know, the textures, right? So, right? So what we'll do is, is that what we called it? Yep, textures. We're going to say sum of textures. And that's all we do. Now we need to handle the asset loading failed. I'm not sure what to do here yet. What's our game state? Loading, menu, in-game paused. I think we leave it in loading. There may be like an error state that we need to set, where we could display something, but I think for now we just do this and we move on with our lives, because there's nothing we can do here, right? Let's just put a to-do in here. Display an error message about being unable to load assets. Okay. Okay, so this, any place where we're using the textures, like this needs to be take textures. And I think that there's so many errors here. I think that the language server is not even finding them. So let's go in here, and we're going to say this is Let's rename this. Yeah, language server is not happy. Why don't I restart the Gleam server? I can see the errors here, but it's not, like a lot of it's not showing up here. Can I rename that? Okay, we're going to say this is textures. This is assets dot loaded textures. Okay, so this is just going to be textures dot starfield. Some. Oh, that's so much simpler. Yay. Okay. Yeah, the other thing here is scene. We need to we don't need to import that type anymore. We're going to make an ID function in here. I'm just going to start doing this because we're going to have to go through every single one of these. And we're just going to do that. And let's... Yeah, this thing we did last time to get around the fact that it didn't like nested IDs, but now we can make our own thing. So I'm going to take this is going to take an ID and it's return a string, and we're going to implement that eventually. So okay. Yeah, I can't even get the code actions to pop up. It is so unhappy. Maybe what I need to do is run a clean. And it's going to fail to build, but at least it can build the dependencies, and maybe I can start to get the language server working. Okay, so I'm just gonna type this out. And I'm doing this here so that I don't have to change as much of the code, and I can keep the structured IDs, and we can just expand this as we want. I'm just trying to keep this as simple as possible. Word ring. That is an integer. Honestly, at this point, we could use the ring names instead of this business. We'll see. Future refactoring. Okay, so we're going to say most of these are just going to be in two-string on that. That's going to be the simplest. Ring pieces. The main thing that we're avoiding here is apparently string inspect is kind of expensive. So we don't want to be doing that a bunch of times in the main loop of our game if we can avoid it. So making this as static as possible, and just, you know, appending our integers, or if we go to names, we can append names and just make sure they don't collide. That will save us time rather than trying to have Gleam traverse the structures and produce something that's kind of debug output, right? And, you know, I talked with the author of Tiramisu about this privately, and I was like, I kind of like the structure of having, you know, a type for IDs rather than strings strewn around my code base. And I feel like this is a nice middle ground where we can go, yeah, it's a string to the framework, but we can use something structured that you can protect us from a little bit of unintended collisions, which is the problem we had before, where the canonical way of creating the ID from the type ended up in collisions. So this is fine. Okay, so now we've got that. I don't know if we'll need this again. We may just change it to, you know, this be ring name. That might be better. We'll see. Okay. So now I did background. That one was pretty straightforward. Let's look at board. This one's going to be more complicated. So we don't need the type. We're going to need that. So every time we have this bit, we're going to have to wrap it with ID. So let's just go through there and figure out where they are. We're going to get rid of this in a second. It's a little tedious, but so far not so bad. Okay, that's the end of that file. Nice. Let's save that. Okay, camera. Put ID on that. One thing I missed here. My apologies. This needs, so scene node is no longer parameterized type. No longer generic over your ID type. It's just a string. Make sure that's not lingering anywhere else. Yep. Okay. Camera. No ID type there. Tiramisu context is no longer parameterized either. So, okay, so we got the ID there. Let's look at lights. We don't need the type, just need the constructors. And we'll do that. We will do some improvement on our lighting at some point. Not really happy with all of that. Okay, so this doesn't need to be there. We're gonna have to find basically all those places that the ID type is, and we'll have to adjust that in a minute too, the duration. Instead this float, and we'll say, you know, this will be a duration, potentially, the rotation period. Okay, let's get the overlay. Again, we don't need that type, but we do need this. Okay. Let me double check all these. Let's go ahead and fix this. I think what we'll do is we're going to change this to be ring name. Heck, we should change this one to be ring name as well. And then, so this will be name. And we'll say, let's do ring name to string. And we'll do the same here. And yep. Oops. That'll make them nice and debuggable too, and it's not a some random integer. So now that we have that, and this is private, we don't need to expose it really. That means that we can go over here in the board and we can say, let's see here. All right, so those are pieces. Okay, so this is so we'll just import that. My naming skills are real great. Bodes well for my career. Okay, so that's fine. These let's see, the inner geometry is the inner one. So we're going to say this is inner and I don't know that we're using that. Yeah, so we'll refer to it directly. Okay, so we've got the ring name here. Yeah, okay, so we're using the ring name down here. So we're fine on that. Okay. So let's go back to assets. Nothing really to do here. We could potentially inline those. It's fine though for now. Okay, we haven't done anything with controls. I want to look at what the changes are in Tiramisu input real quickly. I think it was that. Okay, so these states are sets rather than lists, which makes sense. Um, there's some constructors for it for internal. Yeah, and I think the other big change is the FFI stuff was moved out. No, there was never any FFI in this. Okay, so we may not need to do anything here. In our own controls bits. We'll come back to that. Only if there's some compilation errors. Okay, so animation. We need to see what the new types are because it's not in animation anymore, right? Like this is just about clips, but what we were doing is tween. So we need to switch that. So let's find in here animation and let's replace it with tween and see what we get. Okay. So this is fine. This is fine, but what we need here, okay, so this needs a duration, so we need to gleam, finally, gleam time. It is probably already there because Tiramisu depends on it, but the other thing we're going to do is add the library that we published. Or Easing's Gleam, if I can remember the name of it. Okay. So we will do, let's import Easing's. Doesn't that feel good? Oh, well, okay. Yeah, put it up at the top. Okay. So, yeah, so this is going to be, what does tween float take? So it takes a duration. So let's also import time duration. Okay. So we'll say, I think that this is supposed to be seconds, duration seconds. 3. And then we're going to do easings dot linear, which is basically an identity function, to be honest. Okay, and we had some bogus stuff going on here. So let's find the next match. Okay, so the delta time needs to be a duration dot duration. And now it's just tween update. There's a little bit of mess here in that we have the module named tween and we have the field named tween. And now it's like there's, remove the duplication there. I'm trying to remember what we call these in Fable. If we call them tweens or if we call them transitions, or I don't remember. They were part of the whole keyframe business, so it was a bit different situation. Okay, we've only got 4 more. Most of them are following this pattern. Okay, so we need to do tween. And here we'll do the piece exit transition. Remember we wanted to do like in back, so let's just do it. Back in. Okay. That feels so nice. Okay, so this is... Okay, so we got 100 milliseconds there. So let's do int. I think we'll want to put this stuff up at the top anyway, right? So the constants are easier. Okay, let's see. This is delta time is a duration dot duration. Okay. Where was that? Okay, so we need duration dot milliseconds. Okay. So that fixes that. Piece, we don't need to change anything there yet. Okay, so here we need Gleam int. That should solve that. Nothing in state. UI, I have no idea if it's going to work anymore. There are a bunch of changes there. Note that there's no UI module here anymore. So what I'm wondering is, how we can send. Let's look at effect, see if there's anything in here. So there's delay, interval, cancel, and so forth. Browser effects. What I would like to do is see if there's something that will still send messages to the UI. And yeah, there's not that much in there that I can see. So you know, the fact that the module was just straight up deleted. What I want to do is let's look at what it is on the tagged version, and let's look at the code. So this just goes into the okay. Okay, so we'll have to look at what that did. Do you register luster? I recall looking at this in the past. I just don't remember what it does. So let's look at the FFI code and find these luster functions. Just register UI, dispatch to UI, dispatch to game. And then we will let's see. Register UI. Okay, so this was some dispatch manager business. And it was like a global. It was like luster has a dispatch function, and Tiramisu has a dispatch function for effects. So I wonder if there's a guard in here or a guide in here about, right, so there's the runtime. Pass a callback to effect.from. So I'm guessing what we could do when we need to do that is when we need to send something to luster. Is that right? But how do we get the... No idea what this is. Wow. Okay. I think we need to look at the implementation here. Because, you know, the types of effects in luster and the types of effects in Tiramisu are not the same. At least I'm pretty sure they aren't. So we look at Tiramisu effects here. Yeah, this is, you know, I mean, this is fairly typical of something with a functional effects system. You basically put a wrapper around a function, and you pass that function something to send messages. So, like, you know, this one is just the effect none is just a function that returns nil, and it ignores the dispatch argument. Right. And the from is just anything that can take a dispatch function. Batch just does that. It spreads the dispatch over the contained effects. Okay, and then run is like you pass it the dispatch function. This is the internals, right? So I think we need to look at whether this is hamstrung us quite a bit. This change. Yeah, there's the new browser module. I suspect it hasn't. But it's not clear to me how we can make... I mean, luster is a dependency of of tiramisu, is it not? I don't want manifest, want this. Yeah, like luster is a dependency. So let's just find all the places. Okay, ignore the examples. Let's filter it to include source. Okay, so that's just an example in scene on the CSS 2D label bit. Okay. All right. I'm a little bit confused there, but let's look very briefly at the... Where's the FFI bits? Okay. Intern, or is it runtime? Client runtime FFI. Let's look at that. Because what we could potentially do is if there's some there's this, but I mean that doesn't make this any easier. And this is internals. Like I would expect that. Okay, so there's the constructor. Yeah. it makes me feel like there's something in here we should be able to take advantage of. Let's look at this file. Okay, so you can. Okay, so given these functions, this is the thing that's called. So it doesn't mean that the runtime is here. These are all. I think I may be getting too in the weeds here. Yeah. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the stream. So I am getting very much into the weeds of Lustre. I want our UI to work, but I think for now I'm going to settle for, because we're not using it much, I'm going to settle for just fixing all the compilation errors that we have. And oh, thank you so much. I'm doing great. Welcome to the stream. Okay, we're not using internal ID. We're not using animation here. Where? Let's find all the places. Okay, so we don't need that. Let's find all the places where this is. Okay, it just says it's unused. Any other compilation errors in here? Let's see. Okay, so we need tween.getValue. Yeah. And we'll, okay, so we've got that imported. Good deal. Where am I from? I'm from the United States. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri or Kansas, both. And here I am. I live in Kansas City, Missouri as well. So, okay, so I didn't update this. This needs to be wrapped. This is no longer valid. That was a bug. Finally getting the correct bugs back from the compiler. Okay. That module does not exist. So we're going to have to figure out I'm just going to change this to effect.none now, right? We're going to have to figure out how to send messages to the UI later. Yep. Okay, so for this, we're going to have to change this to option. So this is going to be option of asset loaded textures. And then we will do option.map. Starfield, right? And this needs to take textures. I like game development. How do you make a code game? So that's a very generic question. What I'm doing right now is I'm using a language called Gleam that compiles to JavaScript, and I'm using a library that's written in Gleam and JavaScript that connects to the 3.js library that's in JavaScript, and so we can run this thing in the browser, which is pretty awesome. So, okay, I need to update some more of these things. Finally, give me the errors I need. Okay, we just need a thunk for that. I don't know why it didn't like that as a... You know, honestly, because that's a nullary constructor, we should change the signature there. So I think over here we'll change this from this to just the type. There we go. What are the bugs we got? Okay, so... Oh, right. Okay, so maybe this is it. Previously it would... Previously, it would just create a canvas for you. But it doesn't anymore. You have to provide the selector for the canvas where the stuff will be drawn. So and we also have to specify the dimensions. That's interesting. So the background is not part of this. Gosh, I don't know what we'll do here, because I was... Here's the example. I'm just going to say hash game. I think the idea is that you use Tiramisu, or not Tiramisu, you use Lustre, the UI framework, to build the DOM that you need, and then you attach Tiramisu to the... Okay, so that's interesting. I wonder if we could do the integration between the UI and the game with event bubbling. That would be interesting. Yeah, he said, I also started learning programming, but I can't create games with JavaScript. If my laptop wasn't powerful, I would have learned Unity. Yeah, like, I get it. You know, Unity is pretty cool. C# is a good language to use with it. It's a pretty good language in general. My background is more, you know, I did some stuff with Rust. I play with Bevy. Bevy's really, really cool. But Gleam is a functional language. It really hits it checks all the boxes of things that I like, um, and I want to um, I want to keep using it. And this, like, I've had a really good interaction with the author of this library that does the binding between 3JS and Gleam, and it's a good experience. So I want to get in the game. Hey, here's the thing: I'm not in the gaming industry. I just do this on the side for fun. It requires a lot of logic. Yes, I agree. I'm confused by what you're writing, even better than. Well, it's confusing me at times, but here, I'm going to show you something real quick. So what we're trying to build is a recreation of this game or some variation of it. We'll have our own, set of rules. But in the early aughts, so 2000 to 2010, I played this game a lot. It was called Yo-Ho-Ho Puzzle Pirates, and it had a collection of about 20 puzzle games inside the game world. One of them was this navigation puzzle. So if you were at the wheel of your pirate ship, and you were trying to make your pirate ship get across the ocean better, one of the ways to do that was to play the navigation puzzle when you're at the wheel, and this would speed up your time going across, to wherever your destination was. So this was a puzzle I loved to play. It's basically a match 3 game, and you have the stars fall in at 8 directions, and you try to match them up. So, like, if you get 3 of the same color matching, they'll get removed from the board. But your ultimate goal to do better at the game, to get the best score, is to match the different colors with the slots that are marked on the rings that they can fall to. And if they fall, as they fall in, they will fall to one of the rings that is open. And if you move a ring on the inside and it opens up a space, they'll fall into that ring. So you get this sort of, there's a lot of match 3 games on mobile nowadays. And this is similar to those in a lot of ways, but there's a lot more limited pieces. And your goal is to match these patterns rather than to just match a bunch of 3 pieces. And you're asking about creating games requires a lot of logic. Yes. So I'm going to relay advice that is not my own. But there's a game designer and developer who I've watched their streams before, and their YouTube channel, and he's at Riot Games, and he works on Teamfight Tactics. His name is, he goes by Mort Dog. His name is Stephen Mortimer, and his advice is, you want to write a game, do it on pencil and paper first, because that way you can test out, does this game hold any water? Like, here, I'm not creating a new game style. I'm recreating a game that someone else designed. So in some senses, I don't have to do that work. I will focus on details of making it functional, making the experience good, and making the development, sustainable. I'm not intending to try to make any money with this. I'm doing this for my own learning, for your learning, hopefully. But if you go back in my streams from several weeks ago, I spent a lot of time on the core logic, and that's, yes, it is complicated. That is game development. But if you focus on some really simple principles, you think really hard about how to implement those principles as game logic, you'll be fine. But do not go into this thinking that it will be easy or straightforward. I would not suggest leaning on an LLM for this. Those are useful when what you're trying to do is very rote, repetitive things. But what you're trying to do is implement a vision, And especially if you're using, uh, if you're trying to build something that you can understand and work on and get enjoyment from, I think the problem solving uh, is part of the enjoyment. At least for me, it is. And if you are farming that all out to an LLM, um, you're going to miss things, and it's going to do things that you might not understand because you didn't build it yourself at least once. Now, if it's like, oh, let's do this thing that is really repetitive, rote, common business logic code, yeah, LLM is great for that. I personally don't use them as much as some of my colleagues at my day job, um, but I have found utility in doing that. Um, it sped up a few things that were, I felt like, maybe not complicated, but tedious. But I was also asking it to do something that is really well known. Like there's a lot of material out there that it could draw upon to predict what I wanted. So anyway, for this, my goal with these streams is to do a bunch of learning myself and to share that learning with others. So that's why I'm doing this stuff by hand, and I'm not leaning on LLM. And besides, my work pays for LLMs at work. I don't pay for any on my personal computer. So here we are. Okay, that was a very long-winded rant, but hopefully... Okay, I'm just going to do let assert. Okay. Sorry, we're going to do that. It was just complaining about the return value of my function. So I'm just going to make sure, hey, did you start up? If you don't, crash. Okay. This is not going to work anymore. So I'm going to have to go into our UI. And I think that yeah, we're gonna do canvas. We're gonna make a canvas here, and we're gonna give it attribute.id game, and that's gonna be our Thank you. Thank you for watching my YouTube channel. Really appreciate it. I'm trying to make one video a week. And you know, we're showing the journey. I like logic games. What do you mean by logic games? How many games have I created? Not complete games. But this will be my second, basically. I did some, like, when I was very young, I think I did some sort of like word games in basic, like QBasic, when I was much younger. Yeah, let's move this up. I think what I want to do here is go just make a generic div that has no attributes, and we're going to put the canvas and the absolute position div inside it, because I think the canvas needs to be on its own. I don't really remember what Tiramisu was doing in the previous version. Let's just look at it. Yeah, that's interesting. That's like an effect in luster. Interesting. I think we're gonna have to figure that stuff out ourselves. Okay, let's look at the code here. Um, okay, so they're creating a scene, right, with the dimensions. Scene create. That's tiramisu scene. Okay. I think that's an internal function. Render option anti-alias alpha false. Okay. And then setting the background, that's something we have to do separately now. Okay, so what did this scene create do? Excuse me. Okay, so there were some FFI bits. This has all been moved. Okay. So get DOM element. So it creates a renderer. Right. Yeah, so it was doing this automatically, and now it's not. Render. It wasn't there. It was in the 3JS, I think. Create. Okay, so it just did new 3.scene. Let's look for the other things. Create renderer. Okay. Based on dimensions or full screen. Okay, so we were not doing this. We were letting it be full screen. It's not actually turning the browser into full screen. It's just taking up the entire browser. Okay. Oh, that's fun. Okay. Let's see what other things. What I don't see is creating the canvas. Yeah, it's just this set canvas thing. But so create a render, create a scene. This get DOM element. Okay, so get renderer DOM element. Let's look at that. I don't know if this is using double buffering or not. That'll be interesting to find out. Oh. Okay. Well, let's look at how the new way does it. Okay, so let's jump down to the run function. Okay, so this looks very similar to before. Yeah, get renderer DOM element. Where's this selector being used? I don't see the selector. Oh, okay, okay. So it's just adding, it's using the browser API to append the canvas created by 3.js directly to this container that we put a selector for. So that changes how we do this. I think that I probably just put it here. And then what will happen is our UI will still get rendered, but it's going to append the we may have to do some FFI of our own. It's going to append the canvas that it creates to this div. So I think that's the appropriate way to go. We don't have an index HTML defined here. We're just using the one from the Lustre Dev Tools. So if this even works still. All right, let's see what errors. Okay, we've got a lot. So let's go here and just clean this stuff up. We're not using IO list or string or that stuff, okay? Right, so it no longer has a parameter. Where's that, line 71? Right, okay. We deleted stuff, so it's no longer there. So the delta time is duration. So what we need to do here is we need to change our model. Is there a 0 function? Duration. Let's import that. Import Gleam time duration. So when did you start your YouTube career? It's not my career. It's my free time. I started it about 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago. And how do you do it? I schedule time. I have an OBS set up, a camera, microphone, and a ring light. In fact, that ring light's really bright today. I have this ultra wide monitor, so I'm only showing you the center of the monitor. I have to the right of me, which I'm pointing to, OBS running here, and it shows the chat. I have a few other things over on the left side of the screen that you can't see, but I try to focus on the center and just like make the text, hopefully it's big enough for you all to see cleanly. But yeah, and I just do it for fun. I'm not monetized. I do it to do things that I like to do. And one of those things is this. So I would get confused with so many codes if I were you. So here's the thing. Bear in mind, I've been a professional programmer for over 20 years. I do... Gleam is like the 10th language I've learned or something. So as you learn more of them, you start to see similarities and it's easier to pick them up. So your first one's gonna be hard. I don't recommend JavaScript as your first programming language, by the way. I might choose something like Python, maybe. You know, I could be purist and say go learn Lisp or like ML or something. But you get used to it. Let's see, did I have Gleam time? No. Time. Sorry, we're going to look at these docs real quick. I wanted to... There's no zero value, no function for constructing that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, we're going to just say duration dot milliseconds 0 to get an empty one. And this time needs to be a duration dot duration. And then we're going to have to go through and fix a bunch of things because this is relied upon. Okay, so we're going to say duration dot add model time to delta time. And then the places where... Why is that not in scope? I added it. Okay, so we're going to go there. We need to fix this. This is a... Gleam time duration. I'm going to have to do that a lot. So duration dot duration. Okay, so what can we do here? So I kind of want to do a division. And I think that this is okay to turn it into a float. So this is, we were previously using this as, let's rename this variable to seconds. And I'm going to change it to 5. And then we're going to go, whoa, what happened there? Here. For Pete's sake. That was a mess up. Okay, so we're going to do time. It's going to approximate seconds, and that's fine for this purpose, because we're just trying to get the things to rotate. Okay. Let me go back here. Okay, so the board. This takes time. We need to do that. Let's go down here. This is... let's put it as close to the usage as possible. Yeah. Do I plan to create 3D video games later? Hey, interestingly, this is using a 3D engine. So we're going to have pieces in it. We're going to have objects in the scene. We have an what do they call it? Orthographic view, but they're objects in the scene that are very clearly 3D and they like spin around, and you'll see it hopefully if I can get this all fixed. So, so let me go here. Right, so this is going to be duration.duration, and what we're going to do is say I just made it spin. So we're going to say let time equals duration 2 seconds of time. So we're basically just saying here rotate around the y-axis every second, around the z-axis every 2 seconds, and around the x-axis every 5 seconds, and that kind of gives a, you know, interesting spinny effect. All right, let's see. What other warnings do we have? Oh yeah, we don't import that type anymore. Okay. If possible, please make more videos. Yeah, like I said, I'll be doing them every week. And I'm going to continue on this project until we get to a point where I'm really satisfied with it. So let's see. Hey, it built. Okay, we're going to do... I have no confidence that this will actually work, but we will have almost upgraded everything. Okay, what's wrong here? Could not resolve. Okay, so we're going to update, and I think we may have a problem with so this is down in Tiramisu. We aren't doing that. Let's look at what's here in the build directory. Gleam standard lib. Gleam function.gleam, right? Identity. So so that function exists, so we just need to see what comes out in the dev. It's there. All right. I think I did this in the other one, but we're going to do... Luster dev build. See if it was just a... Yeah. I wonder if this is just a bug in Tiramisu. Okay, so here, build dev JavaScript. In Tiramisu, tiramisu.mjs. Is this just an issue with... This is interesting. This is not the FFI. So the compiler should be finding that correctly. This is pure Gleam code, right? Let's see if the were there too many? Like the, you know, interesting. So there's a bug with resolution of the... Let's see if that's a bug in Tiramisu. I don't actually know if it is. Let's find, oops. Yeah, this is just a bug here. And I guess in Tiramisu Gleam, it's yeah, this is just a bug. I'll send a patch. So let's fix that. And let's run clean and build and Luster dev build. It should work now. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. Okay, so let's close that. Okay. rather than fix this because it's just a simple thing, we are going to go up here, and I'm just going to comment on the pull request again. Let's see. So what file do I need to go to? Tiramisu. Gleam. The problem with this being that there's so many files, GitHub hides them. Okay. Don't include deleted files or vendored files. Give me just get rid of all of this. Is a pain. Can I not just tag? I want to go to a specific file. And your search doesn't work. Here. Turn this back on. Why make it hard on me, GitHub? Making it so hard on me. Okay. We need to get past the examples. And there's no way for me to just like select this file to view. It'd be nice if I could just comment on it on my local editor, but I cannot. I may have gone past it. No, actually, I imagine the directory comes first. So we're almost there. There we go. Okay, so I need to go down here and find that that change we made. Okay, line 560. Make a suggestion. Okay, I'm going to briefly tell the author found a bug in Okay, that handles that. Okay, so I think we shouldn't need to do anything else there. Let's do start and see if our game still runs. It's going to be interesting, I think, because we've got a significant number of changes. Okay, so our game is still running. It looks a little bit washed out. I mentioned, you know, the spinning. That seems to still work. I need to do some correction on some things, I think. Yeah. Oh, You say wow, but this is nothing. I haven't even begun. Um, so I think I need to look at. Let me look at the console. See if we printed anything out here. We're probably going to have to do some like echo business to see. But honestly, after all those changes, this still working is pretty awesome. And I think that this sets us up for a nice nice step for what happens next in terms of our game logic. Let me see if our tests still work. Yep, they still work. Okay. Cool. You know, I have not committed this in forever. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to add all of these things. I feel bad about not pushing it, but we're going to... Okay, we're going to say work in progress, updating to latest Tiramisu. We'll say not latest, we'll say experimental Tiramisu branch. Okay, because I have not been pushing any of this. So, how fast are you typing on the keyboard? Gosh, it's been forever since I've done a typing test. I think at one point I had like 75 to 80 words per minute, but nothing to be like really proud of. Enough for my work. Okay, so I feel pretty good that that happened. I think I need to inspect the... Okay, so we've got the app, we've got the game div in here. Right, okay, so here's what the... Here's the canvas. This does not... Yeah, this does not have any... I'm wondering why it's looking washed out. It could be the lighting. And I know we tweaked with the... Here. How is this atmosphere? Oh, that's interesting. The resize is not... It's not sensitive to resize anymore. I wonder... Here, let's just refresh. Okay, so you can see there. It slowly moved and then it dropped. That's one of our game mechanics. Except when we do it, it'll be when we actually have the user, like the player's controls affect that, it'll be much faster. I just wanted to make sure that the transition was working. So okay. Yeah, I think we could... The bit that I'm not sure about is we did not... Previously we made a black background, and it could be that this is just... It looks washed out because it's white background by default. Don't... Maybe we'll look at... Yeah, let's have a look at the library behind this, and then I need to wrap up pretty soon because I've reached the 2 hours. I know I started early, folks, but oh, so there's set scene background color. Let's look at set scene background color. Okay, so the question is, how do we do that? in our view, do we get the scene? Okay, so I I guess we can do that in a knit. That makes sense. So we're gonna have to import, except I'm not gonna, is that right? I don't even remember it. That is like the hardest thing to type. If I had any feedback to the author, name that something that I can type. Okay. And I probably need to do I need to make it a direct dependency? I don't remember what the rules are in Gleam on that. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Yeah, transitive may become a compile error. Yeah, I think I need to do, need to add it. So we're gonna copy this. And we'll put it down at the end. Okay, so here we are going to set scene background color. And we're going to take context.scene 0. And let's see, that really didn't change that much. I'm wondering if that's like the default. There's a lot here that I think I just need to play with. So I could make the opacity of this higher. No, that the problem is that just makes it brighter. I don't want it brighter. I just want it less washed out. This is, I wonder if we do 0 there. No, then it just shows as black. We need it. We need the basic color to be white. So because this is multiplied by the texture. What if I made the opacity 1? It's like, you know, it's pretty bright. But what if we change the color to darker? So like, let's make it half that. Basically the same effect. It needs like an HSL transformation because I want to keep the saturation without, but decrease the lightness. And some of it is just this source texture. So like I put this back to the hex color for white and full opacity. I can make this false, of course. You can see it's very bright, and some of that is just the source texture has a lot of white noise in it. We could see about tweaking that. So let's open that file here in code. Game Jam assets Starfield. So this is the source texture. Now there's things with like, I'm wondering if this is expecting pre-multiplied alpha, because you look, if we're just taking the straight value from here, it should be quite a bit darker. I thought the discussion was that basic materials don't interact with lights. Sorry, not luster, tiramisu. So if we look at the material, unlit surfaces, no lighting calculations. Like, that's exactly what we want. Now we could do 2D billboards that face the camera, sprite material. Maybe. So if we look down here at the basic material, which is what we're using, where are you? Basic. Don't react to lights, making very fast to render. Opacity must be between 0 and 1. Both these examples for the code, they're not showing using a texture there. Yeah. If it doesn't interact with lights, then I have an issue of this texture not being well prepared. So I think, let's see if we can adjust the color. Okay, so if I do auto levels, it's compressing the color there. Here, reset. Gets darker if I decrease the exposure. Reset. Let's see about the contrast. Right, so okay, saturation actually gives me more red. That's interesting. Temperature. That could be nice, decreasing the color temperature. So basically, we're, you know, this is warmer versus colder. Actually, colder is a higher temperature, ironically, because it's more blue. Blue, higher energy. Red makes it a warmer temperature, or warmer temperature makes it more red, so actually a lower temperature, technically. Tint, I don't really want it to go green. That purple isn't bad, but let's see about sepia, what happens when I do that. Okay. The other thing that's bugging me is it's not a square texture, and so we have to do all those goofy calculations. Might be interesting to see the shaders for the basic material. The thing, if it's pre-multiplied alpha and the alpha is 1, so it's fully opaque, then that would be no change to the other channels. So it can't be that. I'm not sure what to do there yet. I'm not very happy with the how washed out that is, which I thought I'd kind of fixed by doing this, but maybe it's just I've been away from it for too long. And it's also that, like, it adds some fuzziness where these are really crisp, right? And which tells me I need to do some editing on that texture. And then I should just make it fully opaque. So now let's see if we put this to 1. transparent false. And then, okay, so that's super bright. What if we just decrease the red channel? That makes it blue-green. Let's just take it down a notch like that. And I apologize if this is hard to see the distinction on screen, on the stream, because it's a bit hard for me to see it on my own monitor as well. Yeah, I think we're gonna stick with that for now, and we'll do tweaks to the lighting and such later. This is a good place to stop my stream for the day. So next week, hope to see you here. It'll be 2026. We will get on to doing more of those gradual animation transitions. We will probably start pulling out more geometry, since all of those geometry things are exposed from the new library, which is like awesome. We'll be able to create other kinds of geometries, which is super awesome. I want to have, is it even implemented? Maybe we can contribute that back. I want to create octahedrons for some things, which is two tetrahedrons attached to one another. We'll create some other kinds of geometry directly, which would be awesome. And then we'll be able to play with a lot of the stuff that's in here. Because it's sort of like a direct binding to the library, rather than being through the abstraction layers that Tiramisu has. So we'll be able to leverage that. Anyway, thanks for coming to the stream. And thanks, Xavier, for that note. and we'll see you next week. Take care.